Good evening. If I've not met you, my name is Faith Halliday and I will be your MC for this evening. I'm lucky to work with the superstar team at the Western Sydney Leadership Dialogue, so that's how I kind of fit into all this. But for the diehards among us, the dialogue diehards among us, you will have seen me on stage before and you would have heard me say that I am not a professional MC. But despite my nerves, and my stomach is like for real butterflies, and my unpolished nature, the team keeps inviting me back up here to do these gigs. So if I stuff up, Don Christopher Brown, he knows exactly what he's getting into when he calls me up. I will say though, that tonight I'm going to be heaps more profesh than I have been previously, and I'm specifically going to make a conscious effort to keep my fangirl in check when I introduce speakers, because that's been my downfall in the past. I'm really going to try not to gush, so I'm declaring it, help a sister out, remind me. Before we kick things off, Boomtown is made even better thanks to the support of our event partners, Transport for New South Wales Department of Planning and Education, NAB and Western Sydney Airport, and our event sponsors, which are up on the screens. We are so grateful and honoured to have their support and so thankful to you all for being here tonight, so a huge thank you from us. Now, I'd like to introduce my colleague Adam Leto, Executive Director of the Western Sydney Leadership Dialogue, to the stage. Adam's long list of credentials are well known, but for a bit of extra insight, Adam is one of the hardest working humans around and a most passionate advocate for the Golden West. Where is he? All right, I've got some time, so I can probably also tell you that Adam is performing quite poorly in the Office FIFA tipping comp. So please give him all of the encouragement and love because he absolutely needs it as you welcome him to stage. Come on, Adam.
It is true, unfortunately, and might need to get a new set of contacts. Faith, I was standing right there. Thank you, though, and welcome to our annual Boomtown dinner, which is back again after a COVID-enforced break last year. As many of you would know, tonight's dinner is not just an opportunity to shine the light on some of the highlights when it comes to project delivery in Western Sydney, but also a bit of a lead into our conference, which we'll be hosting in this same room tomorrow, where we'll be diving a little bit deeper into some of these issues. Much like tonight, where we'll hear from the New South Wales Labor leader Chris Minns and City's Minister Rob Stokes, there'll be a little bit of politics on the menu. And given that we're over 3 months away from a state election, it's also an opportunity for the dialogue to put forward some of the policies, initiatives and projects that we've developed in consultation with many of our partners and stakeholders this past year. I'd like to thank those who have helped contribute to that piece of work. I'd also like to give a shout out to our policy team, Luke Turner and Lauren Nichols, who's spent a great amount of time pulling it all together. Well done, guys. Our chairman, Christopher Brown, will unveil our formal advocacy document at tomorrow's conference, and we'll provide a little bit more insight into its release later tonight. But one of the themes that we've seen emerge and actually comes through in the projects that we'll see tonight, it's that Western Sydney is no longer just being defined by its heavy infrastructure. Yes, there are still metro lines being built, roads under construction, hospitals and schools, of course, an airport ticking along. But there's some cool stuff happening too. When the dialogue kicked off nearly 8 years ago, a large part of our focus was on helping secure those foundational pieces, the key infrastructure that could really set the region on its course. What we're seeing now, as many of these projects start to come online, is that the next layer, the next chapter in Western Sydney's growth story is what ties it together. The sometimes missable, but always critical bits that sit within its cracks. The fine detail that makes our places interesting, that provide character, energy, vibrancy, that makes them places where people want to work, want to visit, want to study and want to invest. What we're seeing come out of the ground now in the region, and what we hope to see, continue to see, is a new standard in development, build and design. This new benchmark hasn't just happened overnight or by chance. Some of it has been driven by industry, some of it has been driven by community, and some of it by government and its many agencies that are here tonight, that have deliberately, carefully considered how Western Sydney can be more livable. One person who deserves a fair bit of credit, and we'll hear from him a little bit later, is the current Minister for Infrastructure, Cities and Active Transport, and former Minister for Planning, Rob Stokes, who has not only spearheaded a philosophical shift in the way government approaches the way it values place and city making, but has helped the region understand that it can and should aspire to higher standards. I'm sure there are going to be plenty of well-deserved plaudits and discussion of this later in the evening, and there's no denying that the Minister and the New South Wales Government deserve to be recognised for the investments and the settings they've helped establish to foster a more sustainable, creative and collaborative approach to development. But perhaps the most pleasing thing that has started to emerge is that the private sector, councils and investors are now also stepping up and playing a leading role. There's no better reflection than this year's Project of the Year Awards, which feature a mix of winners across a range of categories, from commercial buildings that have been designed with the highest sustainability principles, new recreational facilities, the biggest of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere, continued excellence in health and education, the work that has gone into breathing new life into one of Western Sydney's most important heritage precincts. This year's awards program is the biggest and most impressive that we've hosted, and it's a timely reminder of just how much good work is happening across the region. Before we start with the formal proceedings, I want to acknowledge everyone who did put forward submissions this year. In addition to the standouts that we're about to see tonight, there was a bunch of and very similar high standard nominees. So I want to thank those who took the time to put forward their projects.